Houston. Say again, please.
Houston, we've had a problem.
Hey there folks, welcome you all to yet another Friday vlog of mine. Another Friday has caught up with us, people. Yes, it has. Flagons up to you all. It is, after all, Flagons Up Friday, people. If you have not got one of these to sit and enjoy with me while I spraff and ramble on about all things gaming, then go and by all means get yourself one, as long as it's an appropriate time of the day, people. I'll let you decide what appropriate is, but not in the morning, people. Any other time is appropriate at some level. So go and get yourself something and sit down and chillax with me, shall we? We should not join two words together like that, but come and chill with me while I talk about all things gaming. This week, people, we are talking about the main subject topic of this week is Warner Brothers Interactive Entertainment is allegedly, apparently, up for sale, people. Up for sale. Can you believe it? It's a bit, I mean, I'm totally surprised at that with the success that they've had. However, they obviously need the cash somehow. And I'll also be talking about the gaming that I've been doing this week, people, because I have been doing a lot of gaming. And it was only because I had a mighty itch, so I scratched it to do with a particular game. And I just thoroughly enjoying it. Painful, yes, but enjoying it, yes. And that game is Sekiro, so I'll talk about that later on. We all know that I did try that with Aaron Brew on the channel, and that was about, I don't know, 6 months ago, maybe longer. It must be longer than that now. But anyway, there's 4 episodes on the channel. It was me and Aaron Brew, my son, playing it together on camera for you guys. And we both struggled with it. He has since platinumed that game at home himself. So that's probably that. I mean, that's a super platinum to have that. I mean, it's a tough game, and it took. I mean, he tells me he can sort of breeze it now, but it did take him as well a long time to wrap his head around how the mechanics work. And once you figure it out, you figure it out. I'll talk about it later, but I'm still in a place where I'm still trying to figure a lot of it out. But anyway, I had a good time with it. And then The Last of Us Part 2 arrived today about 1 o'clock in the afternoon. This being Friday, the launch day, Friday the 19th of, what month we're in, people? June. And, well, I'm going to crack straight through it because A, I don't want the story spoiled, and B, I've got Ghost of Tsushima arriving on the 17th of July, which is a month away, so less than a month away. So yeah, so we're going to talk about a bit more about those two games after we talk about the main subject matter, which is Warner Brothers Interactive Entertainment being up for sale, and who firstly is interested in buying it, that we hear rumoured to be interested, and why I certainly believe, and others, but I certainly believe, the first thing I thought when I heard about this was, why don't Microsoft buy it? Because their one major problem at the moment is they don't have enough variety in their first party stuff to make people go and buy a console. It's been their problem since the dawn of Xbox One. Xbox 360 smashed it, did everything right. But the Xbox One failed in so many ways, but one of the biggest ways that it's failed is its diversity and number of first party titles that you can only play on the Xbox One or PC. I mean, when they say console exclusive now because they know it will go to PC. But yeah, I mean, we're going to rattle through the studios because Warner Brothers Interactive Entertainment actually is an umbrella that covers that owns a number of studios, right? And there's some big ones in there, so let's rattle them off now, right? So we've got TT Games, Rocksteady Studios, NetherRealm Studios, Monolith Productions, WB Games Boston, Avalanche Software, WB Games Montreal, and WB Games San Francisco, right? Now, there may be more than that, but that's what I got from the Wikipedia machine, people, right? Now, that includes the franchises / games of the Batman Arkham series. I mean, for God's sake, people, that on its own is well worth buying a studio for. Now, I know that Rocksteady don't really want to be making more Batman games, but they are rumoured to be making something that might be more of a Justice League type thing, or Avengers type thing. Well, not Avengers, but I think it's more Justice League or something. That was rumoured a long time ago, but they have been basically silent since Batman Arkham Knight, was it? Yeah, Batman Arkham Knight was the last one, wasn't it? what came out, which was what, 4 years ago? No, was it? Yeah, it must be 4 years ago. It was ages ago. Amazing looking game. Had my issues with it, but fantastic game. That whole series is just fantastic. Apart from the one they didn't make, which I've never played. But they even themselves say they don't talk about that one. They call it a trilogy. Their set of games. Now, if you've got the Batman series makers, and you say, right, tell you what, right, rather than make Batman 5, why don't we just make it from scratch? Like, you've got a whole new, you're 2 generations on from where you were when you made the first one. Start from scratch, give us a brand new story, change it up in any way you want, And what about, don't start shouting at me or anything, but, and we all love the Bruce Wayne story, we do, but you could go with Batgirl, you could go with a different Batman altogether, with different characters. I know the comics have mixed things up a bit, especially with Spider-Man. Like, Spider-Man became different characters. I'm sure somebody told me that Batman became a black guy at one point. They put an African-American character into the Batsuit. I'm sure they did. I know they did it with Spider-Man. I'm sure somebody told me in the comics of Batman that they put a black guy in, not Bruce Wayne, but he was a totally different character, because the whole Bruce Wayne thing was done to death so much, which I totally understand, that they went with a different concept and it was really successful. So you could do something like that. You could do something really fresh with it if you really wanted to. I think they're probably reluctant to change it that much so far as Batgirl goes. And I don't know. It's always hard going away from the very core first story, isn't it? And yeah, I mean, it'd be the same with Spider-Man. It'd be interesting, actually, because it would be interesting to see how the Miles Morales Spider-Man game does. I think it'll do really well irrelevant anyway, because people just want to swing around being Spider-Man. In the end, it's about the gameplay, but you do want to connect with the characters as well. So, as long as the character's written right and it's a story that grabs people. The Bruce Wayne story always grabbed people. It was nothing to do with his ethnicity or anything else. A Batgirl story, a Black Batman story, they'd all do well as long as you've got a good, solid origin story for them. You don't want to shoehorn it in. Like, you want to do, if you want to change sex or ethnicity, you want to do it justice, right? Write it for them. Like, don't just turn Bruce Wayne into a black guy. Like, give them a proper origin story that does them justice. Same with Batgirl. Batgirl's got an origin story. I don't know what the proper origin story is of that one, to be honest with you. And I don't know. Well, maybe you could. Well, Robin was in the other ones, wasn't he? But the other ones kind of. I think they've used just about every bad guy that was ever in a Batman thing. But anyway, the fact that studio is part of the Warner Brothers God, I can't even say it now. It's too long, people. Warner Brothers Entertainment, Interactive Entertainment, whatever it is. We'll call it Warner Brothers, right? The fact that Warner Brothers Interactive have got that studio, it means that there's so many options open. What is it? Well, what will be interesting to see is if somebody bought the studios, do they necessarily have the right to make a Batman game? Because the very reason that Warner Brothers Interactive have the rights to make Batman stuff or to make Harry Potter stuff or to make whatever is because of their film studio connection. I assume that's the case. So it doesn't necessarily mean that because you buy the company that you get access to all of that copyright material. So that's going to be interesting, because if it doesn't come with all that copyright as standard, then what's the point? Because you're not actually going to get the franchises you want. You'll get the studios, but you won't get the franchises. That said, if you're taking on well-established studios like those, they could whip you up a game that's got nothing to do with those, those franchises at all, and they'll be outstanding. The companies that, I mean, I know Microsoft have got a brand new studio now. Well, they've got 3 now, haven't they? They've got the brand new one, which I'm forgetting the name of. They've got the Coalition that makes the Gears stuff, and they've got what they're called. I want to say Office 365, but it's not them, people. The ones that make Halo. So they've got 3 AAA studios doing that stuff. They've got the company that do Forza Horizon, or the Forza games in general. And the Forza studio is also doing the reboot / new Fable game. So that's coming out soon. So they've got a lump there that can make them good stuff, right? But it's not stuff that's taking us anywhere new apart from one studio, which is making either a brand new AAA title or something that is not been seen in a long time franchise-wise, and it's being redone. For the new age people. So it'll be interesting to see what that is, and I think we'll see what that is in the next big reveal that Microsoft do in July. So that's going to be really interesting. But outside of that, all the studios that they bought are good studios, but they're not AAA full pelt studios. They're good studios, but they're not. They're not in the realms of competing with what Sony have on their front line at the minute. However, I would argue that somebody like Rocksteady certainly does, or Monolith certainly do. I mean, you're talking about, we were reading through the list of games there, weren't we, and I got sidetracked. So we're talking about Batman, right? Massive. Mortal Kombat. That game is more popular now than it's ever been. It's not for me, but it's more popular than it's ever been. Batman, Mortal Kombat, Shadows of Mordor. So that's basically the Middle-earth series, right? You've got Shadows of Mordor, Shadows of War, blah, blah, blah. Another AAA game, Harry Potter RPG, which has been rumoured for ages, is coming from them, and that is most probably going to get announced this year. The Lego games, I mean, but they sell millions upon millions of copies, those Lego games. And then you've got older titles that we've not heard of for a while, like the Fear series and Injustice series. I don't know about the Injustice series as to whether it's been seen recently. I don't know much about that series. I know about Fear from a long time ago, but yeah, I mean, there's some big franchises in there. The studios that are, well, the companies that are interested, well, that are rumoured to be interested are, Microsoft's not been mentioned, but EA, Activision Blizzard, and Take-Two Interactive. They're the three companies that are allegedly interested. Allegedly? I've only had that much. Allegedly interested people. But I would argue that if the price tag is not too ridiculous, that Microsoft have got the biggest bottomless chest out of all of that lot. So for me, I'd prefer to see Microsoft get it than an EA or an Activision, most certainly, because I don't think those two companies would do those studios any kind of justice whatsoever. We've all seen what they do with a studio on the whim. Like, how you can shut down the Dead Space studio is just beyond me. Like, visceral. Why would you? Dead Space 3 didn't quite hit the mark for me, but, it wasn't awful. It just wasn't as good as the first two. I did not see any reason for shutting that down. I mean, I could argue, of course, I didn't see any reason for shutting Lionhead down either that made Fable, but hey-ho. I think that was more to do with Fable not selling. Fable was great, but it didn't sell the sort of volumes that maybe justified a studio of its own of that magnitude, and they always thought, well, we'll bring Fable back, we'll just do it with a studio that makes other stuff, like, Forza Studio, already massive, break up another team and make them do it, sort of thing, or have them do it. But I feel like EA, we all know what EA are like, and Activision really aren't much better. Activision / Blizzard now, so they've brought some good games to us without doubt, but it's the cash cows that they turn them into. We all know about EA's way of the loot boxes and all that hit the Star Wars games and the hoo-ha. They said that there was no place in the world for single player games anymore, and then Respawn were adamant that there was, and they're under the EA umbrella, but they're the only company under the EA umbrella that seems to have been given that privilege. I mean, I suppose BioWare as well, but even BioWare have been shoehorned into doing an MMO, which it's been the biggest nightmare for them since the dawn of time. That, I mean, Anthem was supposed to be this next great thing, and it's just been bloody awful. Like, you can buy it for 15 quid. Nobody's playing it anymore, are they? I mean, I think it's almost going to get relaunched, and they'll just forget what happened before. So, for my liking, I think from all of the people that we've mentioned, Microsoft, who aren't actually rumoured to be interested, would, for me, be the best solution for all of those companies if Warner Brothers don't want them anymore. So I think Microsoft would invest in those studios. I think they're already big studios anyway, so they would just immediately get more cash. Just say, what do you want to do? You want to carry on with those titles, or have you got ideas for new AAA titles? But they are AAA studios. They can go straight into making your AAA title like that. You know what I mean? I mean, that's, for me, that would be the company that I would want to pick it up. It would... I don't think it would level the playing field with Sony at the minute, because they've spent a long time getting those AAA titles in play, those exclusives in place, and building their studio network. But it would certainly make it more 60-40 than it is now. I mean, they would be very close to a 50-50 point of, like, there's a reason to be buying an Xbox now. Because I can't play the next Uber Batman game, or the next, I can't play the new Harry Potter RPG, which is supposed to be, this big awesome thing. I can't play the, what was the other one I mentioned? Oh, the Middle Earth stuff. I can't play the Lord of the Rings stuff without having an Xbox. So it gives you all of these reasons to want to buy an Xbox, whether it be your... I mean, for me, I think people that are going to want to play games are probably going to end up with both, or they'll end up with a PC, playing them on a PC, and then pick a console. But it's certainly like that is a massive leg up to being back on a 50-50 console war. And I don't like the phrase console war, but console competition, we'll call it, because you want it to be balanced. Like, you want them because it keeps them on the toes. I'm really glad that Sony have put everything into the PS5, because there was a little part of me that felt like, oh God, please don't take your foot off the gas, because you've just walked it in the PS4 period. And I say walked it, there was a lot of hard work went into it, but they still have the main guy, Mark Cerny, on board. The new guy who's the head seems great. All the heads of studio are on top form. The game companies are doing great. Yoshi's still there, Yoshida. So everything's still going really well for PlayStation. I just had this worry that they were going to take their foot off the gas, but they didn't. They obviously know that Microsoft... I mean, they know what a good job Phil Spencer's done with the hardware, the Xbox Series X, the Xbox Series S to some extent. Still not great, but the Xbox Series X is a fantastic, the best machine out at the minute. But again, it comes down to exclusives. Then you've got the two consoles that are about to launch. You've got the PS5, you've got the Xbox Series X. They know the power of the Xbox Series X. They knew that he wasn't going to let it be that he was going to have less teraflops than them. I still don't think that's going to make much of a muchness in the end. I think the two consoles are pretty much on par, because I think it will be more of a balance of experience versus teraflops. And I don't think in the world of teraflops, the difference between 12 and 9, or 10, whatever it is, 12 and 10, is that huge. It was back in the PS4 original day, because it was a vast difference, but between that's a lot of flops in both machines. And then you've got the architectural design of the PlayStation 5 is supposed to be leaps and bounds above anything else that's been seen, because of what they've done with the whole architecture of it. So I think it's going to be really interesting to see people like Digital Foundry and stuff compare games on both consoles when they come out. But I think we'll find that there's not much of a muchness in them, people. So I think it is all going to come down to the titles, whether or not you're going to buy it. And to buy if they bought Warner Brothers Interactive, it puts them almost back on a level playing field with the amount of studios that can make them AAA titles that will compete with Sony. And because they're already established AAA companies, you're not going to need 5 to 6 years to come up with something. They'll probably just need 3. I mean, they might already have stuff half in development. So, I think, for me, I think that would be a perfect purchase for Microsoft. It's whether or not the price tag on it is good enough, fair enough, and justified enough for them to put the money in. Because I know they've got a bottomless purse to some extent, but they're not going to spend $4 billion on something that's going to take about 20 years to make back. I mean, it's not really that healthy an investment. So it's all going to come down to how much money they think they can get from the titles those studios can give them versus and whether or not they get the copyright to all of the stuff that they were making. I mean, they won't own the copyright to Batman, but they would have to buy the privilege to make Batman games and not have to keep forking money to them for making them. To be fair to the Batman games, I think they were based on the comics anyway. I don't know how much of copyright is actually film based in that regard. But there'll be a copyright in place. But there you are. But yeah, I mean, I would be super stoked if Microsoft got that. I think it would be a terrific buy for them. I realise a lot of people are probably shouting at me saying, no, that's rubbish, because the next Batman game, I want to play it on the PS5. But, you know, that's the nature of it, people. You know, it's the nature of it. You know, you have to say, well, you know, PlayStation have got Spider-Man. It wouldn't be that awful if the Batman game was on a different console. It'd just be the way it is. But, you know, if you've got one or t'other, you're kind of in. I mean, it's not that different, is it? You know, the only thing that wound me up about the Spider-Man game, which I still haven't finished, I couldn't quite get into it. To be fair, I'm probably arguing myself out of a game if I only had one console, but I'm going to have both anyway. But for me, Batman's always been my sort of favourite. I love Spider-Man, but I just found that game didn't fulfil me in some way. I don't know what it was. Maybe it was because I tried to clear the map and I should have just kept pummeling through the story. But with the Batman games, I just had so much fun, like, navigating the city. I just felt like, because I was using gadgets and, you know, the cloaks to fly and stuff and all that malarkey, it just felt a little bit more grounded and real. I felt like I was more skilled in what I was doing because of the way I was carrying it out. You know, I don't know. I just clicked more with the Batman ones than I did with Spider-Man. It was kind of like, I mean, I don't know. I mean, the game's got nothing but praise. It's a great game. There was something in it that hooked me in to finish it. You know, like, maybe, as I say, maybe I should have just carried on with the story and seen it through. But sometimes it doesn't do you any favours to do that, though, because you need to level up sometimes. But anyway, I'm sure I've actually said to myself, I'm going to try and play it again on the PS5. So I actually deleted it from the PS4 for the time being, because it sat there for ages waiting for me to go back to it. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to play that on the PS5 at some point before Spider-Man 2 comes out and see if I can get into it at that point where there's no loading screens, things are looking more beautiful and seamless. Because we've already had a demo of that playing on the PS5. And like, there was no pop-in, there was no load screens, it was just amazing. And apparently that was with no tweaking to it just kind of ran that way. So, or minimal tweaking. I'm sure it was no tweaking at all. Yeah, so it's going to be really interesting. I would love it if Microsoft bought that studio. I think that would be a great purchase for them. I don't think they will, but I think I'd be very surprised if they've not been thinking about it, if it's not been talked about around the table, because it's a terrific purchase that to get a boon of that set of companies just with one purchase. Just going to come down to price and whether they think it's worth it, I guess. And whether or not those studios are going to be willing to make the franchises they want them to make. But Microsoft have been pretty good at the companies they've taken on so far, because they didn't have massive franchises. They're kind of just letting them do, you know, like the Wasteland 3 just came out from that studio for all consoles, but now they've bought that company. Wasteland, they're going to make a AAA title on the Unreal Engine 5, and it's going to be something new. So, you know, they're giving the studios they've bought the freedom to do something new and fresh. So, you know, we're going to see a lot from those studios come. The one we're going to see probably first is Senua's, the new one. Senua's Sacrifice, the first one, but anyway, you know, Hellblade. The next Hellblade game will only be on the Xbox and PC, and that'll probably be the first one we see, because we're already seeing footage of that. The engine was already there. It's a follow-up. With the others, if it's new stuff, we're probably looking at about 3 or 4 years before we actually get our hands on those games, but that's fine. You know, those consoles will probably be kicking around for about 8 years at the high level they're at, design-wise. So I think we'll have them for about 7 or 8 years, certainly. We had these ones for 7, didn't we? It will be by the time the new ones come out. So I think it would be a boon. I mean, at least 3 of those companies are AAA. And then you've got the other ones, I don't know what state they're in. But, well, I'll say that. The Lego ones as well. So you've got 4. The Lego games are AAA titles. It's just whether you're into those games or not. So, yeah, and again, mind you, Warner Brothers don't own the Star Wars stuff. It's interesting how they get the rights to do those games, isn't it? Because they're from every angle, like Star Wars, Batman, also Marvel Avengers one, and, you know, I wonder how much they have to pay to make those Lego games based around those films. But anyway, that's my feelings on the subject, people. I'm wondering how long this vlog's going to be today. It depends how long I'm going to talk about these 2 games. But let me know, people. Let me know in the comments below what you think of my thought process there about about Warner Brothers Interactive being bought by Microsoft, or whether you prefer it to go to the others simply to have them on the PS5. But I Take-Two probably do a better job with those studios than the other two. I think the other two might bin half of them and keep the others doing what they want them to do rather than something fresh and original. So let me know, people. Let me know in the comments below what you think about all of that. So, this week, I have been playing Sekiro. I had this massive itch to play Sekiro. I don't know why. I think maybe with Ghost of Tsushima coming up, it had haunted me a bit that I never grasped Sekiro, right? So when Aaron Brew was here, when we were playing it, he ended up doing the majority of it in the end because I was just getting frustrated with it. Maybe it was because I was on camera that I wasn't giving myself enough time to breathe and stuff, you know. Anyway, I started it from scratch and got right into it from the off. But of course, I love the game and I love the gameplay and it's fantastic. It's a beautiful world. I mean, I just love it. But you get to that point where you hit the what we call mini bosses, I guess, where they're almost a precursor to the big boss that you may need to use some of these learned moves you've done. It's trying to test whether or not you've learned them. Because certain enemies will be weak to certain things that you do, like a particular reflect or deflection or something. Like there's one where you can, when the symbol, basically what happens is if they do a special move, a red symbol, Japanese symbol appears on the screen, and you can do a specific thing if you've learnt the thing to do it. And in my case, the one thing that I'd learnt to do with that specifically was to be able to stomp on. As long as it's a thrust move, you can then, if you hit the B button at the right time, because I'm on the Xbox, it'll stamp on it, like the spear or whatever it is, the thrust with, and then you can hit them with a special move. But the timing of all of that, and being able to, because you have to also not move when you do it, or I seem to, like, it doesn't work if you're holding the stick at the same time. So the minute you see it, you let go of the stick, hit the button. But of course, you're already up to 90 because you try to move around all the time. So them in themselves are quite tricky. Funnily enough, the one that does that spear thrust, the first time you have to challenge someone on it, I did really well with him. Absolutely hammered him. And I did struggle with some of the other mini bosses. There was a big troll. It took me loads of attempts to get the big troll down, but eventually got him. There was a general who took me loads of attempts. Well, it wasn't as many as the troll, right enough. I did get the general in the end, though. I think it was about maybe 6 or 7 attempts. These are just the mini bosses. And actually, the mini bosses are slightly more frustrating than the main bosses because there's no run back to the big bosses like there is in the other From Software games. The run backs tend to come on, like the mini bosses are usually sat in the middle of other standard enemies. So you've generally got to clear the standard enemies out and then take the big guy on, because if you try and do it with the little ones there, you'll just get hammered. So the frustrating part is each time you fail, you need to clear the area out and then take the big guy on again. So the only frustration from that comes from there. The only 2 bosses I fought are, for anyone that knows the game, well, the first one I tried was the butterfly woman, I'll call her for want of a better word. I don't know what her actual name is now, I've forgotten. You'd think I'd know for having fought her a gazillion times. But it's at the palace, and it's a level that you pray. It's a memory almost. You pray at this altar, and it takes you into that area. And this is the area that we did on the channel, as it happens. But you don't have to go that way that early, and I don't think you're meant to really take her on as early as I did. But I ended up in there by mistake, and I just kept going. And I tried, people. I tried for 2 hours to beat her, and I couldn't do it. Took a break, went back on for about another hour and a half, still couldn't beat her. I can get her to a second phase, and then I just haven't got enough in the bag to get past her. And then yesterday, was it? Yeah, yesterday, I thought, right, I'm not going to give up because I want to see more of the game. So I teleport, because you can teleport from any, well, they're not bonfires, they're prayer altars or whatever they're called, to another one. So I teleported back to where I was before I accidentally went there. Because there's a central hub you go back to level up your prosthetic and all that malarkey. That thing I prayed at to end up there is in there. So I just went back to where I actually had killed the troll, which was where I was meant to move on from, and that took me into where the last mini boss was, sort of General somebody or other his name was. Took me into that area, which I eventually did, and also took me down into another area which it had that area. Yeah, there was an area behind that where you jump down onto loads of branches and you end up going through a cave, and there is actually an enemy in there which Aaronbury told me, like, you can jump down and say hi but you'll get hammered. Not meant to beat them yet. It's just this weird looking creature down the left, but then I ran round and then I kept running round and did other things up that way, and then behind where the general was, because it circles back round to there, you drop down and it takes you into another section where you've got to dodge this. I mean, I didn't know what was there because I don't remember doing it in the playthrough. But anyway, I ended up in this section where this massive snake appears and you've got to try and jump over the logs and stuff while it's sort of not looking at you, and try and hide in the undergrowth, otherwise it just destroys you. That was really, really cool. And then managed to get past all of that. In fact, in that section, there were seeds that you can pick up, which also help you in the fight from the first butterfly lady that I couldn't beat. It helps in her second phase, because if you take one in that phase, it stops her sort of special glowy move thing that hammers you. And if you don't collect those there, you only get one of those from a guy before you go in. And if you use it, it's gone. So, and fail, it's gone. So I've got, you pick up 5 of those from a little tree in the middle of that place. And then at the tail end of that, there was another little section to clear out some enemies and a smaller troll. It wasn't a mini boss though. And then behind that, I came across another boss. So it was only the second real boss that I've seen in the game. And it's the first boss that you're technically meant to fight in the game, I think. And it's a guy on a horse with a spear and something on a bit of rope that he spins around. And actually, he felt quite doable. I only gave it a couple of goes because I was kind of tiring at that point. I thought I need a break. And yeah, I mean, I thoroughly enjoyed it. I mean, I feel at the moment like if it didn't have any bosses in it, I'd see that game through. Because I feel like the mini bosses are a big enough challenge for me. But it's because I'm still not getting how you get because this is all to do with effectively that you've got your health bar and then you've got it's not the stamina bar, what's it called? Oh god. Anyway, it basically you've got to keep on the attack, and when you keep attacking something, its yellow bar goes up, and when it reaches max, you can then get a special move down on it. So you've got to keep that bar as high as you can. And I just can't. Well, you don't have to. You can keep nibbling at the health, but it takes bloody ages. And in the end, that's how I always get the mini-bosses. I always end up just nibbling at their health and eventually finish them off. I can't seem to figure out how I stay close enough to get their yellow bar up without getting destroyed. You know what I mean? Like I've tried the deflection and timing my swings, and yeah, I mean, my brain just isn't getting it. You know, like with that butterfly lady, you're probably, in my world, probably on par with the Father Gascoigne fight in Bloodborne, which is the first boss fight in Bloodborne. Yes, it was frustrating running back all the time. Yes, it was a frustrating fight. But when you twig as to how you get around that guy, you twig. But there's no twig. There is no twig happening, people, in this game when it comes to that. I mean, I can slaughter individual small enemies in a heartbeat. Like, they're not a problem. Absolutely loving playing around killing the enemies. Give me a mini boss. I struggle getting their bars up. Never mind the big ones. I mean, I do it eventually with the butterfly lady. Not tried it with the guy in the horse yet, and enough to know if I can get his bar up. But anyway, yeah. I mean, Aaron said it took him ages as well, because you've got to try and get your brain to understand how that game works. I mean, he actually did homework on it, looking at videos, looking at how people did it, you know, trying to figure out what the key is to making a success of those fights. So maybe that's what I need to do if I want to carry on playing it. But I thoroughly enjoyed it. You know, it's funny because when I kept failing it, even though it was the best part of 4 hours fighting that bloody butterfly woman, I never got overly angry, not like I do with the Bloodborne one, because there's no run back. Like, I know there's the what's it called, dragon rot thing. Like, if you die too many times, this dragon rot thing keeps getting worse, but it never seems to really affect the game that I've seen. people just keep coughing or something. But other than that, like, you can just, like, literally all I need to do is stand up from the altar I rested at just before I fought the butterfly lady and run straight back in and fight her again. So there was no frustration of having to run back. The mini bosses were more frustrating because you do have to run back and clear them out. But I still didn't find myself getting overly angry. I got frustrated a few times, but not like I do with the Bloodborne ones or the Bloodborne 1 and the Dark Souls ones where you've got that mighty run back. So yeah, I was interested. I mean, if anything, I just kind of grew a little bit bored of it and thought, I'll come back with a fresh mind or whatever. So yeah, I'm actually really chuffed with how well I did by myself without Aaron Brew interjecting sometimes to do his bit like we did with the first playthrough. I never expected to do as much of that game as I did on my own anyway. So, and to get as far through that butterfly boss fight, to get to the second phase, to get a third of a health off on that second phase, man, that's great. So, maybe I'll get back to it. But I knew I wanted to give it a good go just before. I knew The Last of Us Part 2 was coming and I was going to go straight to that anyway. And I knew that I was never going to finish Sekiro. I just wanted to give it a healthy go on my own to see if I could wrap my head around it and enjoy the game. And I loved it. It was really, really, really good. So, will there be a Sekiro 2? I don't know. It's going to depend on whether enough people manage to finish that game. I know that people that played Bloodborne and Dark Souls games really struggled with that game, and did enough of them get their heads around it to finish it and want a second one? I don't know. Because it all comes down to sales in the end, doesn't it? Because the price tag of that game is staying high, and that would suggest to me that it usually suggests that they're not being resold or they're not being... but there's not enough copies floating about on resale. That could just be that people aren't reselling it, of course. But anyway, it'd be interesting. I'm still super excited. I mean, I'm probably... well, this hasn't made me excited for it, but I'm actually really excited to go back to the sort of rhythm of a Dark Souls game. And with Demon Souls being remade for the PlayStation 5, I'm super stoked for that. Actually, something that we should talk about, just before I finish off on my very brief thoughts of The Last of Us without any spoilers, don't worry, and I've only played an hour and a half anyway, is that Horizon Zero Dawn is officially not a launch title. There was a video up a couple of days ago from one of the chaps at the studio that makes it, and did this beautiful sort of talk through of what was going on and what they've been working on. And he said that their aim for release was 2021, so anytime next year, but it is not happening at launch. That did surprise me. I thought that was going to be a launch title. That means either Sony have not shown us everything yet when it comes to first-party titles and launch titles. And it's interesting because if that's the case, then that's pretty clever. However, that said, if all we got at launch was Demon Souls Remake and Ratchet and Clank Rift Apart, that is two massive titles to start with, people. I mean, do you want any more than that on a launch day? I mean, you've got a good kid game in there, you've got a good AAA titles I'm talking about, there'll be loads around it, and there'll be loads of third-party stuff, but for first-party AAA titles, you've got those two coming on day one. Do you need any more than that? I don't know that you do. I mean, I wouldn't have bought Horizon... it's not Horizon Zero Dawn, anyway, I just called it that. Horizon Forbidden West. I don't know if you I mean, I don't think Horizon would wanted to have launched with those two titles next to it. Like, it want to have its own little moment. So I think it's pretty clever. Like, Insomniac have done pretty well if that's the case. They're giving them the smaller Spider-Man game that's sort of... You can play it by itself, but it's an extension of Spider-Man in itself. And then you've got Ratchet and Clank coming with it, both from the same studio as Insomniac. I mean, that's insane. Like, it's really, really good for them. Don't think we know if that's a launch title yet either, the Spider-Man one, but I suspect it will be. So yeah, anyway, we don't know. We don't know anything about it. We don't know what is a launch title at the minute, because first party wise anyway, because they just won't say. So it is interesting though that they have preempted whatever's happening next with the Horizon Studio saying no, it's 2021 for what we're doing. That's fair enough, don't rush it, have it ready. I'm just surprised. I thought that was from what we'd seen, and I was saying, I've said it. My prediction was Horizon would be, Horizon 2, as I was calling it then, would have been the second. Would have been a launch title. So it is happening, but I guess my predictions are now false. That one is false anyway. I've still got 2 on the table that might happen, which is the Demon's Souls remake and Ratchet and Clank Rift Apart. I didn't know it was called that, obviously. Not that good at predictions, people, but I knew that Ratchet and Clank is what I said. So there you are, yeah, so that's an interesting one. So I'm really looking forward to seeing what happens in the next Sony one, because they keep saying there's so much they haven't shown us yet. That was just a taster, so it's like, all right, bloody hellfire. So it's going to be really interesting to see what they actually confirm for day one and the other first party titles that are happening. So yes, so on to people, the final topic. Well, we've done 40 minutes there, people, even though we only had 3 topics, 4 if you count Horizon. I'm going to have another sip of this. I apologise if you've heard a banging all the way through this video. The living room door is not quite shut and it's just bumping against the... And it's because I opened the back door because it was so hot with all the lights on I have to put on here to make myself visible that I opened the back door to let the air in. And it's making that door bang. And I didn't want to get up and close it in the middle of the video. So I hope it's not been annoying anybody. The Last of Us Part 2, people. Oh my god. It is so... I said on the run-up to it, I wasn't feeling stoked for it. A lot of that was to do with my worry of the story. My worry that did they need to make this game? The first one was so good. And I tried to play The Last of Us actually just before it came. And I couldn't play it again. And I think because I've already played it through about 3 times on the PS3 and I've already played it through 3 times on the PS4 in the remaster, I think maybe I'm just, there's only so many times you can play a game and then it's done, isn't it? The only thing I didn't manage to do was the online stuff, otherwise I'd have the platinum. Stupid online trophies. So really that and Grounded, which wasn't part of the main trophy set anyway, with the only 2 reasons to play it, and I felt like it's fine. Maybe in 10 years' time I'll come back and play it with fresh eyes and do the 2 of them again. So I was a little bit downbeat about it coming. I was still excited, but, I was kind of like, I didn't know how I was going to feel about it until I put it in the machine. And oh my God, people, the emotion I got at the beginning. The opening's brilliant. It's so good. And touching and lots of feeling in it. And I'm not, because Aaron Brew, he started it at the beginning of the day pretty much, and I didn't get I was working anyway, I didn't get my copy until about 1 o'clock or so it was, and I took some flexi, I said I was going to take some flexi today if it arrived, which I did do, but I didn't actually finally get playing it, because I didn't take that much flexi in the end, because there was work stuff I really wanted to get tweaked and done, so I really didn't start playing it until about 2:30. So I got about an hour and a half in before I decided I was going to do my vlog, as I normally do for you fine folks. So I'm still in what would be the introduction to the game. So I haven't actually got to why the chaos kicks off or, that sort of stuff. But it's just so beautiful and so lovely to be back in that world again in a dark way. The minute I started playing it, I just felt, oh, I've missed this place. It was so good. And it's interesting because the graphical fidelity that they've kept, and I'll have a conversation with this with Aaron at some point, because he did say that he thought it was beautiful, but it wasn't blowing his mind like the first one did on the PS3, when it just was like, wow, how did you make that happen on a PS3? But to some extent, like, if you put the remastered original in and then play this, they feel like the same game. And yet, if you do that with Uncharted 3 and Uncharted 4, they don't feel like the same person or the same game to me. Like, the graphical fidelity was just so far apart. Like, it was just unrecognisable as the same series to me. I mean, yeah, okay, the voice acting and all that's the same, the music and, blah, blah, blah. But the visuals, it was almost like, I had the same problem with Gears of War 3. Gears of War 3 on the 360 looked so gorgeous that it didn't feel like it was the same planet as the other two, the other two that had come before it. And I think there might be an element of The Last of Us Part 2 where they've decided to keep it beautiful, but keep it on some sort of level field with the original, so that they feel like the same world, they feel like the same characters, they feel like the same game. And they've done a beautiful job of it. And that's not to say that it looks the same. It doesn't. It looks... I mean, it's just more... It's just crisper in every detail. It's... the facial expressions and all that stuff in gameplay is far superior. Of course it's far superior. It's hard for me to explain, but it feels like it's the same world, feels like it's the same characters. There's no massive divide that makes you feel like you've leaped a generation and suddenly feel like you're not playing the same game or the same characters, which is what I felt like with Uncharted 4. So I'm actually quite chuffed that it looks and feels the way that it does, because I didn't want that. And it was in the back of my mind because it bugged me about Uncharted 4. And I still, to this day, love Lost Legacy more than I love Uncharted 4. And Uncharted 3 is still my favourite. But yeah, so I'm absolutely adoring it, people. Gameplay isn't that far away from what the original one was. It's just giving you extra stuff you can do, like lie on the floor. As well as crouch, you can now go prone on the floor. You can stand immediately up from that or just go halfway up, which is nice, but everything else is feeling pretty much the same. The dodge button's dead easy to use. If something comes swinging at you, you hit L1 at the right time and you just pull Ellie back a little bit. And it is an interesting one. Oh, should I tell you? No, I don't want to spoil anything. No, okay, I won't say anything. But it's nice that Ellie's got the knife. Because in the first one, obviously, you had the shivs, and they only worked for a couple of things. And when I killed a few things at the beginning, I thought, well, that's a lot easier. And it is, because you don't have the same worry that you had in the first one, because you start the first one without any shivs. So when you take on your first clicker, it's like, well, you've got to stun them and then try and deal with them with a gunshot or whatever, or go round them. I don't know. I can't remember what I did now. But you basically you can hit them with a brick, can't you? You can smash them with the handhold stuff, the melee stuff. But you kind of got to stun them first, really. So it felt a little bit easier initially taking them out, and I suppose it is from a stealth perspective. But there's kind of another side to that, which I won't ruin, because I was like, when I did it, I was like, oh, okay. Well, that's going to be more difficult then. But I'm just adoring it, people. Absolutely adoring it. And there was only one thing that bugged me about the opener. I'll maybe leave it to talk about it. Well, I can say it. I can say it without spoiling the game. But it basically, all it does is it makes you control a character that isn't Ellie or Joel just for a little section. And I just don't like that. It is a very brief section. It's not a massive problem. It's just... I don't like it when a game forces me into a character that isn't one of the main characters of a game. And they did it with Dead Space, and it wound me up. Like Dead Space 3. It was like, why am I playing as this? You know what I mean? There must have been another way of doing it. I don't want to play as somebody... Because literally all you're doing is moving that person about. There's no gain to doing it. Same with Dead Space 3. There was no gain to doing it with that guy. It was literally a tutorial section just to say, do this, do that, do blah. But I just felt like it took away from... the emotion, everything that I just got from all of this opening section. It was kind of like, well, okay, I get you trying to tell a little bit of story here, but I think it could have been done without me controlling that character, that's all. But other people might have been fine with it, so I don't think that's spoiled anything for anybody. It's only a few minutes, people. And it is to set a piece of story up. It's just I just don't like it. I don't like it when I have to play as a character that benefits me in no way whatsoever. I think, to some degree, to be fair to Naughty Dog, I think people are kind of like, oh, why am I watching all this cutscene? Like, let me do something, it's a game. And, maybe I'm just of one set of people that don't like that. Other people are like, well, I'd rather be doing this than sitting watching a cutscene. So, fair play. I wouldn't knock a point off the game for it. It's just one of those things that was like, really, did I need to do this? Anyway. It's a very small point, people. I mean, it's just, I love it. I absolutely love it. I've done an hour and a half and I just love it. So there you are, people. That's about all I've got to talk about. Let me know in the comments below, people. Keep leaving me comments, people. You know I love when you chat to me and I always get back to you. Yes, I do. As long as it's something nice, of course. Well, I'm not overly sure what's happening in the next couple of weeks. I know there's a lot of stuff happening on July. There's a lot of gaming stuff. I know Xbox are doing more July events. I know PlayStation are doing more July events, and they have to now. People, you only got in July, August, September, and then you're looking at launch. Launch. Hey. Thank you. Yeah, so you're looking at launch. Well, I think you're looking at launch in October, certainly for one of them, which is what happened last time. You got the Xbox in October. We got the PS4 in November, very early. They weren't far apart. I still think Microsoft are going to want to come out swinging first, but we shall see. Well, I think they have to some degree. I think they're going to want theirs on the market as quickly as possible. That said, I think they're both ready, but they're not going to want to launch in the same week. I mean, they will kind of... They seem to be both waiting for each other. I mean, for me, I don't think there would be anything wrong with... I don't think it takes anything away from sales or anything else if Phil Spencer or phoned up PlayStation phoned up Phil Spencer and said, look, let's have a conversation, right? Let's decide when each of us wants to launch and we'll both work around it. So you do it one week, we do it the next, because that's what will happen anyway. And then let's just tell each other what our prices are off the record. And then they both come out at the same price. Because hardware wise, they're probably going to end up around the same. If it's a $20 difference, whatever. But at launch, they were both the same price last time, weren't they? I think. So I don't think there's anything wrong with that. Just do it on the sly. Phone each other. Sorry, do it on the open, I should say, without the public knowing. Just phone each other up and say, look, all right, let's stop dodging around each other and let's just say, right, who wants what week? We were thinking about the first week in November. What do you want to do? Oh, we were going to do the last week in October. Fine. That's fine with us. And what price are we looking at? And both just say it at the same time. And if one's higher than the other, you say, right, okay. We'll that's it, right? We know what each other are doing. Let's stick with that. Because it's not going to make any difference. People that have a PlayStation aren't going to automatically move to an Xbox because it's, $30 cheaper. They're not going to do it. Because they've got their whole back library of PS4 games for a start. And as we go into a digital world, it's even worse. Because you can't just dump your entire digital directory and start buying it all over again for the other console. So... It's good. I think people are going to, as we go more and more digital, people are going to be more and more solidified in the console they're using because they want to keep those titles. It's like, it's all right for me. I could, in theory, sell my discs and try and buy them on a different console if I only had one console. But, most folk are just going to stick with what they've got unless there's a major reason not to. And some people will buy both consoles if you've got good enough games to buy, If you're not buying an Xbox or a PlayStation day one, you may buy one in 2 years' time. Yeah, whatever. But I don't think there's anything in the mix that would make somebody move consoles at this particular point in time. More based on your game library or where your friends have moved to or are. So, anyway, there you are, people. I've talked long enough to get 2 bars off my camcorder again, people. To be fair, I think I've rambled on long enough to be nearly an hour. I went off on a tangent there, people. As if there's supposed to be 3 things to talk about. I ended up talking about 6. There you are, people. I'm going to start talking now. Let me know in the comments below any of the things I've been talking about. Leave comments. Let me know your thoughts and feelings on it all, people. It has been an honour and a privilege serving for you in this vlog of mine once again. And I shall see you all next time. Take it easy, folks. Bye.